Women's History Month, we're here, and I'm super grateful. I'm going to introduce now Dr. Michelle, because I talked a lot more than what I wanted to. Dr. Michelle Morkert is a global women's leadership expert, speaker, and strategist who helps high-achieving women amplify their influence and lead with confidence. With a PhD and nearly 2 decades of experience, she worked with U.S. State Department in Croatia, researched women's leadership and resilience in Guatemala, and consulted with nonprofit leaders in Poland and across the world. Whether coaching or consulting or speaking, Michelle partners with women to own the room, the mic, and the moment, because it's her superpower. I could talk more about this here. She's a Fulbright scholar. She's done a lot of amazing work. She's the perfect person for this. As I was trying to explain this to my wife, I said Women's History Month, and I didn't say anything else. She was like, Dr. Michelle Morkert needs to moderate. Totally her idea, but she's an awesome human. You're about to see that. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited about the conversation we're about to have, but before we jump in, let's just level set for a second. I'm always asking people, like, what's the baggage you're carrying? But like, what I want to think about is, what do we need to set down to have this conversation today? To listen, to think, to engage and interact, because that's really what this is a conversation. And in fact, in order to make it a conversation, we're going to, at some point, right, we've got Deanna and Jahira doing that for us. We've got some index cards that we're going to pass around. So when you have questions, you can write them down, and they'll pass them up to me, and I'll ask, okay? But what do we need to set down? Like, what pre-existing notions do we need to set down? What sort of stressors, like, my child was calling me about F1 updates because it's F1 weekend. No, that really happened just now. I'm like, I don't need this before the panel, you know? So like, what are the things in our life that we need to kind of just set aside so that we can be fully present? And I want to also kind of frame out Women's History Month for you, because you know it is, right? You're all here, so thank you again for being here. Women's History Month, what are we doing? I think of it like someone's birthday. If it's your birthday, I'm going to come to your house, I'm going to come to your party, and what I want to do is I want to meet people in your life, people who knew you before I knew you, right? When you were a kid, your cousins, your parents, the ones with the funny stories about you. I want to know how you got to this moment. On your birthday, we're probably going to celebrate you, and we're going to talk about, like, what's next. What are you doing now, and what's next? That's what this is. That's what this is. We're thinking about how we got here today and how every single person in this room is a beneficiary of the women who've gone before us. And we're thinking about the women that are really doing amazing things right now, including the women on this panel. And we're all going to collectively think about what's next. That's what this is. So when we celebrate these months, it's never to exclude anybody, ever. And anyone that tells you that is probably like maybe needing a little bit of this kind of reframing. That's all. That's all. So when Jason and I talked about putting together a panel, I'm like, let's get together with a bunch of women from all different kind of industries, different fields, different experiences, and let's just talk and invite everybody else into it. That's what we're going to do. Because there's a lot of wisdom in our lived experience. And Jason's always talking about community, right? And the storytelling piece. When we hear how people got to where they are today, what they went through to get there, and what's next for them, we can learn strategies too. That's what this is today. So it is my honor to introduce the panelists, and I'm going to read from my notes because I had their bios and I kind of like shrunk it into little bullet points for myself. And so you are all welcome to fill in, okay? And I have questions I'm going to ask everybody. We're going to go through the questions. We're going to just really engage. And I have to say, I love panel discussions. I love them so much, and I'll tell you why. We can never replicate this. We can never replicate this moment in time. We can never replicate what each one of us is bringing. This moment, right? Like in this moment, today, right now, at whatever time it is, we're all bringing in our lived experience and our hopes and our dreams and, the vibe that we're in today. We can never replicate this. So thanks for being at this once in a lifetime moment. And it's a co-creation, so thank you. All right, so Nicole Woodcox-Bolden is a friend of mine, and she's a visionary leader, educator, and advocate for holistic well-being for women and families. And Nicole's doing a lot of things. She has 2 decades of experience as a clinical social worker and coach, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, you coach.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay. I knew a little bit about this. She's a former Peace Corps volunteer in the Philippines. People who know Nicole, did you know that about her? And she's the founder of Thriving with Baby. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit about that today, like how you want to explain it. But what I have here is that it's a radical healing space, right, for women and families. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And she's a champion for Black women, visibility, and support in every place that she enters. So thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Okay. So the next person on our panel here is Paula Velasquez, and she's a first-generation immigrant to the United States who learned English through full immersion in school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's not easy. And she has over 20 years experience in business, teaching, and healthcare, which is something I didn't know. I didn't know that part about you. And her expertise is in leadership, development, team building, and one-on-one coaching. So we have a little pattern here with this. And really, I think one of her zones of genius is influencing organizational culture in lots of different spaces, including manufacturing. So we're gonna welcome Paula. All right, so Lisa Grigger, we're just meeting each other for the first time, but I know all the things about you, I think, that are about beer.
Sounds scary.
Because she's a brewer. She grew up in a small town in Illinois and spent much of her career on the financial side of healthcare, right? Mm-hmm. How many years?
Oh, probably 15.
Okay, so a big chunk of your career. And when you moved into doing the brewery, you thought you were going to work in the financial part of it, right? And
Yes.
now you're not. You're doing everything.
Yeah, it feels like it some days.
Okay, yes. And so you've owned and operated Church Street for 13 years?
Mm-hmm. This is our 13th year.
13 years, okay. And she was canning until 10 p.m. last night, she
Yes.
told me, so.
We had to
Yeah.
we had to shorten the canning line. By the time that got fixed, that meant we were canning until about 10 o'clock at night.
And she runs the brewery right now with her two sons, and there it is. That's what everyone asked her when she walked in today. Did you bring beer?
And I said, Jason should have told me to, then I would have. Otherwise, walking into who knows where with a case of beer feels kind of weird.
And she's the most popular person in the room, right?
Indeed.
And next we have Pastor Rhonda Pruitt. Thank you for being here. And she is one of the associate pastors at Our Saviors. Are you the only one?
That's a very interesting question. Ask me later.
Okay, sounds like we have things to talk about. But she's an associate pastor at Our Saviors Lutheran Church, which is in Arlington Heights, right down on Arlington Heights Road. And she has a Master of Divinity from the Lutheran School of Theology in Chicago. One of her undergraduates was from Carthage, and maybe someplace else was another one.
Gustavus in Minnesota.
Okay. She was ordained in 2013 and has been with Our Saviors since 2015, so celebrating her 10-year anniversary. Yeah. So we're happy to have her. Thank you for being here. All right, and then Amy Philpott here. We're just meeting again for the first time, although I've been in Jerry's Cafe a number of times. Cool. So things I didn't know about you, because I was only thinking about you in terms of Jerry's Cafe. But you're a licensed real estate broker. You have entrepreneurial experience with Tuscan Market and Wine Shop. Thank you so much. I love it there. And you have management. Where?
She's part of the genealogy right back there.
Hello. Hi.
Yeah.
Okay. I love it there. Yes. And she has management and operations background and is the co-founder of Jerry's Cafe, named after your late aunt. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And all of the teammates that work throughout Jerry's Cafe are adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And so we want to thank you for being here. Thank all of you for being here. And speaking of that, why did you say yes to being here when you could have been any place else in a very busy time on a Thursday night when you have canning and kids and, you know, all the things going on? So I'm going to just go down the road because I really would love to hear, like, why this matters to you. Why are you here, Nicole?
Yeah, first, why not? But similar to what Jason was saying, like, I really believe that the more we share our stories, the more we build community. Because one, when someone shares, it empowers other people to do something, because then I may say something that connects with you and say, like, oh, I'm not alone. And so that empowers you to do something that maybe you were hesitant about. But then secondly, the more I tell my story, the more I'm no longer a stereotype to you. I'm Nicole. I'm not just some black woman that's in social work. I'm Nicole. And so the more we share, the more we connect, the more you see me as an individual. And that's important. So we can really just let go of all the garbage and connect as humans. And so.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, Paula?
So Jason asked me this question, and I said, you can't say no to Dr. Michelle.
Oh,
So,
I don't know if that's good or not.
no, it's a good thing. The reason why I feel that I'm here is because I wanted to represent Latina women. I wanted to be here. My daughter's not here, but I wanted to be here because I feel like by me doing this, I give my daughter that that authority, that power to be able to know that she can do whatever she wants to do. And you'll learn a little bit more about myself, but I am not a person that stands in front of people. So this to me is getting me outside of my comfort zone, and for me that's success, right? So I just wanted to be here to say, you know, if you're an introvert like myself, push yourself and you could do it. So I wanted to represent all those introverts that are out there today. So thanks.
Thank you. Yeah, Lisa, why are you here?
A lot because Jason asked. I'm just going to say it. And I like the other work he does. I admire Love Local and everything that he does. I've been on his podcast before. And also kind of the same thing as you. It's out of my comfort zone.
Yep.
And yeah, I thought this would be a really interesting panel and getting to know all of you too.
Yeah, thank you. Pastor Rhonda?
Paula, I did try to say no. And so,
That's not.
I am here because I ran out of no's that made any sense. And every one of my no's got shot down. But I'm a person who flies under the radar because I'm public because of my vocation. And so the times where I get to not, and I don't always think that my story amplified is going to help more than, you know, the person in front of me. And so it's never been a drive to be on a podcast. And so every time I've been invited to a podcast, I've said no. I'm too busy. And oh Lord, please give me a first communion class to teach or something so I can say no. But it didn't pan out that way. So I'm starting to think that I don't know why I said yes until a few minutes ago when Jason was doing the intro and he said it's her superpower to build community and to bring together and to amplify women's voices. And then I said, oh, okay, well, I'm here to tap into my superpower.
That's right.
That's why I said yes.
We all have one. Yep, thank you. Why are you here?
Yeah, superpowers. I think everybody has them, whether you want to be invisible, fly, whatever you want to do. Jason called, and his statement to me, and this pretty much highlights how we communicate, he goes, I want to ask you to do something, and I need some badass women to do it. I'm like, okay, what do you got? And he told me what it was, and I remember I was leaving a meeting, and I'm like, sure. And I think my philosophy overall with anything, and I think this happened maybe 20, 25 years ago, was kind of breaking the mold for working for other people and big companies and people telling me what to do, and you're just kind of robotic, is I went from why to why not. So my why really turned into why not. And that became my philosophy overall in terms of, so why not do this? I knew Jason. So I was really curious to be sitting here, to hang out with you guys, to learn. So why not? It's a cool Thursday night. Why not be here? So I'm excited to be here. Hopefully you can figure out your why and your why not, and
that.
turn those into yeses.
I absolutely love that. I'm going to write that down. That's good. Thank you. So I always say that we stand on the shoulders of people who've gone before us. We all do. And then my hope is that I can become shoulders for the next generation. And I know a little bit about everybody up here, and I know that you believe that too. And so I'll start with Paula, if it's all right, to answer that question about who helped you to get where you are today. Who were your shoulders?
Yeah. So I would say it would be the women in my life would be my mother, my aunts, and my cousins. And the reason being is because I come from a Latino family where we share way too much. We share a lot. So much that to me, I'm always like, I don't want to know, I don't want to know. But really, that has helped me and shaped me because I learned their challenges, I learned their failures, I learned the things that they did to be successful, the things that they did wrong. And so that oversharing in my family actually was a gem that I used to hate, right? But it really was a gem because I learned so much from each one of them. I know that you know this story, but my parents came over to this country, and for me, it's hard for me not to share this and not be emotional. For me, they saw it as an opportunity for myself, for me, to have an education. And when I say education, they weren't thinking college. They were just thinking to go to school, to graduate high school, because my parents did not. So they came to a country not knowing the language, not knowing the culture, not having a job, right? To come here and to try to give me an opportunity where I can learn the language and have an opportunity at something that they couldn't. And so just if I put myself in their shoes to think, gosh, for me to go out of the country with a child and not knowing what I'm gonna do, I think to me that is just like amazing. And so that seeing everything that they've gone through has really encouraged me to know that I can do so much more too.
Thank you for that. Who else would like to talk about the shoulders and their lives?
I will a little bit. I kind of echo a lot of what she said. My mother, my aunts, and my cousins. But I think my grandmother, most of all, because I'm older than all of you. And so my grandmother was born around 1890. She ended up with a master's degree. And she was a high school principal during World War I because all the men were off at war.
So cool.
And if you think about that, and what a woman that she was in that time. She did something that almost no other women were doing, and so most of all, it's her.
That's incredible. Where did she live?
She lived in the same town I grew up in.
Okay.
So
in Illinois.
it was Leland, Illinois. It's 2 towns west of Sandwich.
Wow.
And it's a town of about 700 people, but she was living there, so I grew up with her.
Yeah.
And I got to spend a lot of time with her when I was little.
Wow. And I have to just sort of lay some other sort of nerdy women's and gender studies context in this. When you said that year, the first International Women's Day was celebrated in 1908. So while thinking about International Women's Day and Women's History Month may be new to some of us, it is not new. It is not new, and it is something that has been celebrated and is still celebrated around the world. And so she was doing this right around that time.
Yep.
That's incredible. Thank you for sharing. Who else would like to talk about the shoulders that they stand on? Yeah, please.
I will. Like many of the panel, I'm sure that I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. Some of my giants are still with me and still walking before me. And so for no other reason than to speak my mama's name and to say Betty Thompson is the reason why I'm connected to such an amazing village of people. and because she cultivated within me a sense of community, it set the stage for what I would do. My second set of parents, Neil and Wyvetta Bullock, cultivated within me an abiding faith and a vision of myself as a woman in religious grounding and as a woman in leadership in a religious setting. And so I'm honored. My aunts, I have sisters and sisterhoods of people of various walks of life who have surrounded me, not only with energy, but with prayer, with motivation, with accountability. It's impossible to sit in this seat and not really feel all of the many hands that kind of tugged me along the way, pushed me along the way, moved out of the way so that I could sit here. So it's my honor to speak their names.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, I'm cool.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. You want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. So, all the women in my family, but especially my great-grandmother, I got the privilege to meet her and spend a lot of time with her. She lived to her late 90s, and my family was part of the Great Migration, so she grew up in Mississippi. And during the time that she was young, her family was a sharecropper, and so she only got a chance to go to the 4th grade. But she was one of the smartest women I ever known. And she poured so much into me, and she just you have the opportunity to go to school and be great and be this voice. And so I'm doing it because she was one of the, I'm telling you, she had a great vocabulary. She knew so much with only a 4th grade education. And so it just reminded me that school is important, but even without a degree, you can be amazing and be intelligent. So we shouldn't just downgrade if you don't have a degree. But because I have the opportunity to, I didn't want to waste that. And so I'm sitting on her shoulders. I'm like, okay.
Thank you. And it strikes me that nobody mentioned someone famous, right? These are people who have an actual impact on our lives. And so when we think that we're not leaders, we're not the leader. Somebody else is the leader. I think we have just heard about a whole lot of people who might not have ever considered themselves to be leaders, who helped the next generations to be leaders, right? So people watch you. People are watching. And so when we see women take a bold step, women are watching, girls are watching, boys are watching, humans are watching. When we apologize for taking up space, people are watching. When we push and we, work together to uplift and hold accountability, people are watching. And so we really do have a larger impact than what a lot of us realize. And that's something that's striking me as I'm thinking now about all of your family members. Thank you for sharing that with me. I really appreciate hearing that. I want to switch gears a little bit to thinking about you as leaders in your workplaces specifically, and thinking about this climate that we live in right now, which is really, it's really fraught. It's hot right now, right? It's really hard to have conversations sometimes with people that we disagree with, and we know this. And this is something that we're hoping to kind of change, right, with Jason's vision for these conversations, which is so needed. But what I'm really curious about is how you have handled scrutiny and criticism in your careers, because it's hard. It's really hard. It's hard for all of us. And what I want to know is how you handled it and how you managed to do it. Was it a mindset thing? Was it something spiritual? Was it you're regulating your nervous system and you're doing deep breathing and yoga? What was it? Because we can all learn something from this. In this moment, right now, we have a lot to learn from one another about people, who are doing the hard things, who are dealing in moments where there's a lot of criticism and a lot of resistance to their leadership. So Amy, what have you experienced? How have you handled that?
I think criticism today versus receiving criticism or perceiving the reception of criticism is way different than 10 years ago, simply because of the environment for which we live in. Just 10 years ago, we were in a different climate. Even 15 years ago, even 13 years ago when Church Street came along, I happen to own Tuscan, and they came in and we were one of their first draft locations. That was the old-fashioned way. It was a phone call and they drove up. So for me, I kind of have to go backwards to feel like how I grew into being really strong today, almost like Teflon, because I kind of grew into basically owning a cafe when Yelp and all these cyber bullies came on. And if you're a cafe or a restaurant, you are literally one of the first industries to get picked on for whatever reason, and you have no point of defense, right? So I go backwards in that capacity of being that cafe operator and just watching the computer world change. But then if I go back even further, when I was at FedEx and Trader Joe's, being in those environments of management and leadership, a female leader in a pretty male-dominated environment was interesting. But I always maintained the thought process of, if I'm making a sound decision by going through my process, then I'm convicted in what I'm doing. And again, do I beat myself up internally and feel badly because somebody thought ill of me or the decision I made? Absolutely. I think that's just part of being human.
Sure.
But I think ultimately the biggest challenge of being a woman and having leadership and having the ability to impart a decision that's maybe not popular is being convicted and grounded in the data and the reasons of your why, and then being able to impart that decision with facts, but also the humanity behind it. And you may not want to be making that decision. It may affect someone's work, their life, their family, that decision. So understanding that was always very important and is still very important to me. But literally, it's an evolution. And I think now as I'm a little bit more numb to it, to the reaction, to the scrutiny, maybe more so because I feel like I've had enough holes beaten into me over the years. So everything I do, I really try to think, is this the right thing for all the right reasons? And I move forward, whether it's popular or not. And hopefully it's for the greater good. So it's really an evolution, and really just trying to do your best. And if people know you as a leader and know you as a human, they're going to know when you're not wanting to make the decision, but sometimes the play has been made for you. You're just the one being the final hand that's signing something off. So
Yep. Thank you. It's not easy, but we move forward.
we have to.
Yeah. Yep.
We absolutely have to.
Pastor Rhonda, I'd like to ask this question to you too, and I'll repeat it. Leadership often comes with scrutiny and criticism. How have you handled that historically?
mercy.
Because I know you're not the first female pastor at Our Saviors.
No.
Right? I remember Gail, what was her last name?
Heike.
Heike, yes. However, it's predominantly a male-dominated space, right? The ELCA has
Yes.
female pastors, but still not a lot. So what was your experience like being someone who's the only female in a lot of spaces?
So, oh gosh, I think I've been cultivated with a spirit of anyway, do it anyway. And one of my mentors, who didn't know she was my mentor, Dr. Katie Cannon, she said something that stuck with me and has stuck with me all these years. She says, faith is lived going forward, but recounted looking backwards. And so going forward, I was fearful. Going forward, I did something because I was stubborn. I did something because, how dare you tell me no? I didn't know. And I was afraid and I wasn't sure. I am the first African American pastor at Our Saviors. There is currently, we are a congregation of more than 1,000. And of that congregation, 7 are African American, 3 of them being me and my sons. So, but I went to my first college. I was one of less than 30 black people on a campus of 2,700. So being in predominantly black, white spaces, being in a predominantly male field, I was told, psychologically speaking, when we go through all the psych evaluations, they told me that I was much too extroverted for a pastor. And I actually told my own self that I don't have what it takes. Pastors are settled and they're calm and they're mature and they're wise beyond their years, and I am opposite of all of those things, or at least I thought that I'm opposite of all those things. I'm extroverted and I'm bouncy, and you say something to me the wrong way and you might get an earful back, and I'm not the turn the other cheek person. And so for me, I did it anyway. I was denied. I was turned down. I did it anyway. I was told that no one wanted a pastor who was single, who was young, who was black, and who had the misfortune of having children, because it was too risky. I was the trifecta of deficiency. I did it anyway, because what was instilled in me from a long time, even in spite of my fear, was that for me, if you are not a person who practices any particular faith tradition, but I was taught that God is faithful and that God with me was more than the whole world against me. And so even when I was talking myself out of my own dreams, when I was talking myself out of my own sense of being, even when I told myself that God certainly had no use for me, I did it anyway. And so going forward, I looked at it and I said, I can't do it. And I found myself doing it. Looking back, I can say, I did it in spite of the opposition, in spite of the no's, in spite of the do-overs, in spite of the repeats, in spite of the debt, in spite of the deficiency that I was told that I had. I did it anyway. And now when I look back on it, I say to my children who are men growing up with a mom who is a pastor,
Right.
I say to the children in my church, over 400 in my care, who for them, most of them now have never known a life without a black woman as one of their leaders. And you asked me about how I serve. My title is full-time associate of pastor of youth and family. So I cover everybody from birth until they transition over to empty nester. But we are in transition time right now as we search for a new lead pastor. And so right now, I am one of two pastors, but for just a season, I was the pastor. And because I've been there 10 years and I have the history, now stepping into leadership means to say, I have 10 years of experience serving this people, and so there's something that I need to say that you need to listen to. There's something that I have to say that is beneficial. I haven't always stepped into that because I've waited to be asked, and sometimes it's like, well, if you really want to hear it, come ask me. And now I'm finally stepping into a place where I'm saying, no, you're going to listen because I have an idea about what and how this needs to go. And so stepping into that sense of power, stepping into that and doing it anyway, because it's not comfortable to tell people, yes, stand down, I got this. It's not comfortable to feel like you can't, even though you're doing it. It's not comfortable to have that kind of pressure. And so flying under radar is very, so cutting that short, but I do it anyway, because God said so.
Awesome. Because God said so.
Because God
That's
said
on the
so.
end there. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else been underestimated here on the panel? Do you want to talk about Nicole? Handle it. How have you handled scrutiny?
It's hard. As a recovering people pleaser, it's really hard for me to know that people don't like me or have something bad to say about me. So this is always a struggle. But I think the biggest turnaround came when I was in Peace Corps. I started working with survivors of trafficking,
Yep.
and I started doing it here in the U.S.
Yep.
And that work reminded me that it's not about me. It doesn't matter what people say about me. If I can pour into this young person, because a lot of my clients were young people, if I could pour into this young person and remind them who they are, that this doesn't have to be the end of their story, I don't care what anyone has to say about me, because this life is greater than their criticism. And so it's just remembering my purpose is greater than anyone's criticism. And so that's been the one thing to keep me going, because it really hurts. It really hurts when people have something negative to say, but it's just always remembering your why, remembering my purpose that carries me through, you know.
Yeah, of course. And as you're talking, I want to also mention our nonprofits that are back here, Wings, and what's the full name, the one in Palatine? Impact Makers, yes, thank you, who are also working in this space with domestic violence, violence against women. So I want to make sure that everybody stops by those tables at some point in the evening, okay? Please check them out. So thank you for your share, but also for reminding me. As we're talking about this, I was reading some of the responses to some of the questions I had asked in writing earlier, and I would like to know, and let's start with Paula on this one, if that's all right. What is one myth about women in leadership that you would love to shatter for good?
One myth.
Let's get rid of it. What is it? One myth
I don't
about
remember if it's the one I answered.
women in
but
You had a good answer. That's why I'm calling.
was it about emotions?
I don't know. Just answer whatever you
Okay,
want
so
now, 'cause
I'm
it's
thinking
right. Whatever you think is right.
That women
right now.
are emotional. I guess I would say two. One, that women are emotional and they shouldn't be in leadership. That's one of the myths that I would say. Emotions are good. Emotions are helpful. It shows empathy. And it's so important for women. Well, this is my first time I've actually reported to a male. I've always had women leaders, and women leaders can be emotional, but they can also be very directive. They can give amazing feedback. They can help you and lead you in the right places, so they know how to balance that. And so for me, those leaders had been amazing to me because I think that we should be embracing emotions. We shouldn't be saying that because you're emotional, you shouldn't be a leader. The other myth, I would say, and I wouldn't say it's a myth, it's more of women not, something I'd like to get rid of is women huddling together and supporting each other. Because I think too many times we're fighting over one seat instead of saying, hey, I didn't get the seat, but let me help you. Let me support you. And I would say that's not so much a myth, it's more of something I'd like to see moving forward with women. We should not be envious or thinking that we have to fight for one thing. We should be saying, hey, if you get it, I'm gonna be just as thrilled as if I get it, right? So we should be supporting each other, and I think that's one thing that I would change.
Yeah, thank you. Amy, do you mind taking a stab at the question? What's one myth about women in leadership that you'd like to shatter for good?
Well, there's a lot of good stuff there.
Let's go for it. Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing is that a strong, direct, confident woman is
Yeah,
a bitch.
yeah.
There we go.
The end. I've learned, very much as the pastor was speaking here, I grew up in environments where I was encouraged to try things, and always kind of enjoyed the slipstream, kind of hanging back, drafting, and there was something happened maybe in my mid-20s where all of a sudden I was like, wow, I don't have to draft anymore. I could probably have a voice. And I went from drafting to pushing forward pretty quickly. I'm not really shy. I'm pretty confident when I speak. I decided why not. I got rid of the nervousness and all the feelings there. And it can be intimidating. But ultimately, if you got to use your voice to be able to speak respectfully and in a grounded fashion, to be able to push whatever it is you have to do, to push it forward. And I've just pretty much decided that I'm just so sick and tired of being labeled as a bitch, whereas if a male would have said it, actually in a totally more probably inappropriate fashion, or it would have been, oh, that's a strong person. So I would love to see that disappear. I would love to see that erode. It's the glass ceiling in some capacities. Yeah. So I think the more, and Jason's philosophy is really important here, is the more collectively we support each other. And if somebody has something to say and we get out of the slipstream and we start pushing forward in one direction, we can slowly just chip away at that, falsehood out there. So
Yeah.
that's all I got there.
So I want to ask another layer, and this is for you, but since you brought it up, but this is for everybody too. Because what happens when somebody labels you that way? Then what?
It erodes it takes away from you. It's degrading. I internalize it, and I'm like, okay, well, next time I'm not going to say something.
Right.
So you start to retract.
Right.
And then you fall short of maybe supporting something or supporting a topic that needs to be pushed forward, or not supporting a person that actually needs that extra nudge. So
Yep.
it's scrutiny. It's back to that last question. So it's really hard, and I try to have conversations with people, and some of my best friends are guys, so it's really funny. My center, my core is, and so I try to spend a lot of time communicating with them the importance of, you need to help us with that in your communication, in your business, or whatever it is you do. If you could take some of that and help communicate to your peers and the people that you work with to help understand, we're not a bitch. We are just confident and direct. So it's that. It's women automatically, I think our reaction is we go backwards when we're trying to move forwards.
Thank you for taking that extra layer of the question, because we often think, it's just something we say. It's just a word. It's just a name. It doesn't mean anything, right? And it does mean something. That's the thing.
It
Even
hurts.
if we don't want it to, it has an impact. And I think there's a couple other impacts, but I see you want to jump in, so go ahead.
I do, because there's a two-piece to that.
Yep.
Intention matters, I think, but in my world, I can't. I'm probably can stand in solidarity with, but in my world, it adds some type of moral value to who you are to be called a bitch, especially because of the leadership that you provide that is getting results, and so.
Okay.
And so then you are left with this duality. Do I not get the results that sometimes I'm being paid to get, that I have a vision to get, so that I am not a bitch? Or do I fully embrace that word of being a bitch in order to accomplish something? Are they exclusive? And what does that look like? For me, it takes on a context because in the church, you're not allowed to be a bitch. You're not supposed to say it. You're not supposed to be it, whatever that looks like. So it has this connotation of you can be right or you can be kind, but you're in the church, so you better choose kind every time, even if it's to the detriment of the whole people you're bringing along. And if you don't choose it, are you choosing bitch? That's the piece that feels the intention. And we also have words where inner circle, inner language matters. In my family, when I'm talking to my mom, sometimes my moms will say, "Hey, little girl, how you doing?" Now, I'm almost 2 years old, and but when she says it, I don't feel diminished. However, somebody else could say that, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute, I've lived on this planet long enough that you can't label me that way." I think in your inner spaces, however you use that word, whether it becomes a word of empowerment for some people,
Yep.
intention matters, and you feel the intent with which that word is thrown at you and why. And amazingly enough, you'd be surprised at how often it is thrown at women in religious spaces. I don't want to just say in the church, but in the synagogues and in the meditation spaces, how that word is thrown at you for having the audacity to have a spiritual center and then to proclaim it. So it makes you the B word. So
in addition to what you're both talking about, which is about how we feel individually, right? The intent behind it and then the spaces. I want to also add that there's something really important to think about when we're talking about language, and that is it becomes a cautionary tale for everybody else. Because you remember when I said early on that people are watching you? Oh, they called her that. She handled it. She's fine. I might not be able to handle it, though. I might not be fine. So when we use that kind of language, and it's not just about gender either, okay? But when we use that language, we are sort of inviting everybody else to be quiet. We're inviting everybody else to stay small. Stay in your lane. Because the backlash, the punishment for that, I don't want to be called that. I don't think I could handle it. And I don't even know if she can handle it, but I'm assuming she is because she looks like she is, right? And so she's amazing. She's a trailblazer. I'm not. I don't think I could handle that, right? So the language that we use like that is really not just to the individual, but it's like a silencing more generally to other people who hear it. And I think it's really an important conversation, not one that was on my cards, and so I'm so happy that we're having it.
And can I just add too, because when I think of that word, it's such a harsh word, but it's not just that word, it's even other things. So when I think of stereotypes, at least in the culture I come from, the stereotype of a Hispanic woman should get married and have children and put her family first, her children first. And so even though that word has not been used on me, just the fact that other women see me as I'm not putting my family first and I'm not a good mother, right? Because I'm putting my career first, I'm doing other things. I'm not the typical, you'll see me at places, my husband serves himself, I don't get his food, and other people will look at that like, what do you do? Like, aren't you going to feed your husband? And I'm like, he can feed himself, right? And he's okay with that because he understands how I am. I'm a better person, I'm a better mom and a better wife because I enjoy my career, and I do put that as a priority. Not first, but it is a priority. But even though those words haven't been used towards me, but just those even comments of, why aren't you serving your husband? Why aren't you doing this? That, now I've learned to just let it go. But for some time, I did question, was I not being a good wife, a good mother? And I have conversations with my children, and I tell them, my daughters especially, if you want to be a mom, I'm going to support you. If you want to put your family first, I'm going to support you. But if you want to be like me, where we're juggling everything, I'm going to support you too. So I think as women, going back to the whole fact that we need to support each other and not be judging each other for the decisions that we've made, because words are, regardless of whether they're strong words or they're just words that impact, they're so impactful.
I gotta jump in for just a second
Go
because
ahead.
some of you said just really activated me, like women putting their family first. I feel like even though I'm do all the things, that I'm still putting my family first because one, I have 2 young girls, and I don't want to just tell them what they can do. I want to be an example of what they can do. That way they know that I wasn't just telling them some fairy tale. They're like, oh, I know I can do that because my mom showed me the path. And so isn't that not putting my family first? And so it's just like the language that we use in the mindset. It's just like, how dare I be a leader so I could be an example to my kids? Even if I have boys, they should be able to see that women are independent and like, so that is putting our family first. And so just like shifting our mindset of how we define people, and really language is a big thing for me, so yes.
Yeah.
say it one more time for the people in the back.
Yes, and I'm thinking about so many of the women when I think about Women's History Month who've gone before us, and one of the people that I really admire, I never met, obviously I never can now, and her name was Wangari Maathai, and she won the Nobel Peace Prize, and she was the founder of the Green Belt movement, right? And they were having like this major deforestation campaign, and she was teaching women how to plant these trees, and the government didn't like it. And her husband divorced her, took away her last name, took away her children, and it was devastating for her. And someone said, why don't you just stop planting the trees already and just go back? Like, stop it. It's so painful for you. She was imprisoned. And she said, well, this is how I'm a mom. And not just to my kids, to every kid in this country, to every kid who's ever going to know about me. So I'm really struck, by this conversation about the impact that we can have that we're never going to know that we're making, because it just keeps going, right? It just keeps on going. And so when we have conversations like this for Women's History Month and we talk about the people who've gone before us, it helps us all, right, to benefit from that, and it keeps that legacy going.
I gotta tell you, it reminds me of tissue paper. The toilet tissue in the store, where like you can either get the plush, or you get the strong, or you get the... I choose just because there's one that says soft and strong. Like you can't get that in a woman. You can't get soft and strong. You can't get all of the things. We can't be quilted. We can't be
Okay,
Squeeze a bit soft.
and
irresistible.
They got that commercial where, the cartoon bears or whatever, and they say, throw me some tissue, and one of them is too soft and it like disintegrates, and the other one is too strong and it knocks the person out, and then it's almost, it's toilet tissue.
Okay.
I want all the things in one roll.
Well, and that's human. That's human.
It's woman.
Yep. So as we're talking about legacy and our lived experience now, I want us to think about moving forward and, the space that we're making for the next generation. And so I want to think about you with the work that you're doing with your two sons in your brewery, right? Yeah. I mean, you're making a way for the next generation. Can you talk a little bit about what it means to mentor them, to work with them, what's going on? Because you said you have two daughters also,
Right.
and one did work in the brewery.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What it's
About
like to
all
work
of
with
it?
your family? Yeah.
Well, I'm going to start with back when I'd gotten my MBA and I was working in the corporate world, and my husband and I were making about the same amount of money. We're expecting our second child, and they wanted both of us to travel. And we had nobody to help us out, really. And so I ended up taking a step back. And it was a lot of stuff. It was really difficult for me because in high school, when they wrote about seniors in the paper, I said, one thing I'm never going to be, it's a housewife. And so this was not me at all, but it was what our family needed at the time. We ended up having 2 more children, so we had 4, and my husband would be gone in the Far East for 2-3 weeks at a time.
Wow.
He was in Iran. He's one of the few Americans that's been in Iran since they took the hostages back in the 70s, and that was in 1997.
Wow.
So it was important that I be there. I was able to be there for all 4 of our parents when they were sick.
Wow.
And help them through
Wow.
through all of that stuff, and raise the 4 kids. I did a lot of volunteer work, just a whole lot of volunteer work. Helped with sports teams, was in women's clubs, did a lot of
You're okay.
a lot of different things like that. So my whole point with that is I knew my kids pretty well because I was the one that was spending so much time with them. And the older one, very proud of him. He went to West Point, and he's done 5 tours of duty. He came back from Afghanistan 3, I guess he's got 6. Afghanistan 3, Korea 1, one in Saudi Arabia, and one in Guam. That was fun. We liked that one. But he decided to come back and join the brewery because it was kind of his idea to start it to begin with. His dad's a chemical engineer, so that's why he was doing the brewery part of it. But boy, he hated it when it came down to it. So he's really not a part of it. And so the oldest one wanted to come back and help with the brewery. The other son managed on those, you know those tests you take, the ACT stuff, the pre-ACT and stuff? He managed to get that test when they ask what you want to do with your life to say brewer while we were starting the brewery. So he's obviously our head brewer now. But he worked in Cincinnati at a brewery for 5 years before he came back. So he is our head brewer. Those are two boys that are so different you can't even imagine. But it is so fun to see them working together and to see the three of us try to figure out where this brewery needs to go next. It started with my husband's vision of a place that was going to make Helles Lager, just one beer, and distribute it all over, not sure how, and that was it. So now we have 2 locations. We have restaurants in both. We have beer going to several different states besides Illinois, and and we also make beer for other breweries. So we have like all these businesses going on, and it's really fun to share it with them. We're trying to figure out what the next Church Street will look like.
Wow.
And so I don't know. That probably made not a whole lot of sense with it. But how is that? I love every day. It's you know, Stephen is doing more admin and marketing type things, while Sean is the brewer and also just he's an HVAC guy now. He's an electrician. He can just fix absolutely anything that comes his way, and it's really fun to watch the 2 of them grow up. Stephen is married, has 2 little girls, so I've got a couple of grandchildren that he basically takes care of them more. His wife works as a nurse and has those 12-hour shifts, so he spends more time with his kids than she does, and it's fun to watch him as a dad as well. He likes his girls. That daughter is she's the 4th one, and I don't know how many. By the time you get to the 4th one, interesting things happen, I'm just going to say. And she is the one that everybody else is kind of scratching their heads and trying to figure out, all her siblings. But she started out in college, left during COVID, and then decided to, when they started being able to get jobs again, she became a brewer because she didn't know it was something she could do. She was living a long way from home. She was in Virginia. And so she spent a couple of years there as a brewer, and then some things, you know, her personal life kind of fell apart. And she ended up back home suddenly with her 3 dogs and 2 rabbits. And and that first summer, it was like, okay, we need somebody extra in the summer. You can work in the brewery to earn money and figure out what to do. During that summer, I admire her because she set a plan in motion for herself to get her nursing degree, go back to school, get a job in nursing when she wasn't licensed for the job. She'd done something similar in another state when she went to college before, and just set herself in motion. And I'm so proud of where she hasn't worked at the brewery, but she really has herself. It'll be about another year before she gets her degree.
Wow.
But I don't know. I'm very proud of how she put her life back together. Glad to have been part of it, and basically the home for the dogs and the rabbits, and that's about it. But she still lives with us. But she's really making her way.
No, thank you. Amy, I'd like to just ask you about how, because the question was, how do we support other people? Like, how is our leadership helping, mentoring, supporting? And what we didn't get to yet is how Jerry's Cafe connects with the other things that you've done in life. So can you just bridge that gap for me and talk a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, I moved to Chicago in 2002. I was with Trader Joe's. So They moved me all over the country, opened stores all over the place, kind of a nomad. But I came here to Chicago, picked Arlington Heights because it was close to the airport, easy, you know, everywhere I had to go. In that, I just really kind of found a connection with the community. They did move me to Atlanta. I was just all over the place, but I, relationship-wise, came back to Chicago, and that's when I had bought Tuscan Market and said, peace out, corporate world. I'm going to go buy a grocery store across the street from a grocery store.
Right.
Why not, right? Why not? So that was kind of the evolution of getting here, and then the community began. You know, you put a bar in, you give people alcohol, things change. And in that, the relationships developed, connections and community, all of that happened. My mom was ill, so that was the catalyst for me to sell the cafe, probably earlier than I wanted to, probably about 4 or 5 years before I wanted to. But it led me into, because I was going to retire for a year, and that lasted 2 days. And then I immediately jumped into real estate, which then created some more community. So as I was doing that, a person that I knew from the bar, after serving many, many moons, came to me because she felt she needed a realtor to help her sign a commercial space to open a business to employ adults 22 and up with cognitive disabilities, because it's an 82% unemployed population in our world. And I'm like, whoa, 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 here comes Debbie Downer. You're not signing a lease. We got to, figure this out. So all of a sudden, me saying, pump the brakes, let's educate you on running a business in a cafe, came to us really sitting down and really thinking about this concept of unemployment, disenfranchised, lack of inclusion, forgotten, invisible. Yeah. And really, we pulled it back and decided just to go big. We're like, we're not going to open with a Keurig machine. We're going to go for it. So we started fundraising. A local law firm helped get us all legally bound and everything. And as one of the hardest things we've done in crazy adventure of raising over $1 million and doing all these things was trying to name this cafe. Like literally, we were stumped for like 2 weeks. And then one morning we were at breakfast, and I don't know, randomly I just turned and looked at Natalie, this is her idea, her passion, her everything. I just said, oh gosh, Natalie, did I ever tell you my aunt was born with Down syndrome? And in the first 30 seconds of her being alive and breathing, she was immediately discounted. It was depression, it was sadness, you need to institutionalize her. She's going to be a distraction to your family. She's not going to live very long anyway. So just immediate discounting.
Yeah.
And of course, my grandparents said no, and she did live longer than she was supposed to. And she was the polar opposite of a distraction. She was utter joy and changed the mindset in a fairly affluent area where my grandparents were very hardworking people. She changed the mindset of what a person with Down syndrome was. So her name was Geraldine with a G, so we named our cafe Jerry's Cafe with a Gerrys, which is great because it's much cheaper on the internet with Gerrys than with a J. Who would have thought? But anyway, it took us 5-6 years to raise all the money. And we do employ 39 adults 22 and up with cognitive disabilities. We produce everything, we manufacture everything. We don't use a commissary that it's been made. Like Starbucks is making the pumpkin scones now, guys. Like they're making them and they'll be delivered in September. We make everything at our cafe. When you come in, they'll take your order, they will greet you. Yeah. And our tagline is a cup of joy, simply because we want you to take a 5 to 10 minute deposit of yourself, so that time, let down the baggage, don't sit in a drive-through because we don't have them, come in, and with your commodity, which is the dollar, deposit that to our employees, and you will turn around and get a craft food and beverage that is delicious, mind you, but it'll also change your thought process. And probably one of the biggest things I ever heard, and I'm a volunteer, so it's time and treasure. One of the things that resonated with Natalie and myself was a customer came in maybe about 6 months after we opened, and he basically said if everybody could walk into Jerry's Cafe once in their life, the world would be a different place. So right there, I feel like we've put a spec out there. We're trying to grow our staff up so that other people will hire them.
Yeah.
So we can hire more. So the lift forward is what we're trying to educate. We're trying to make a mark in this disenfranchised community. And hopefully that legacy-wise, it's Jerry, my aunt, who was immediately discounted at birth. It's not us.
Yeah.
She is literally their idol. There's a picture up there, and they all look at her and said, if it wasn't for Jerry, we wouldn't have this job. So to me, she's lifting them up and moving the mission forward.
Thank you for
Very
that.
cool.
And I know we need to wrap up, so I'm going to just ask each of you to give me 1 or 2 sentences. What's the next impact you want to make, Nicole?
I have so many things happening right now.
I know. 1 or 2 sentences.
It's like, what? Well, I have it's Women's History Month. So I have a book, a multi-author book coming out on the 23rd. It's called Warrior Women. And it is all about sharing your legacy. So we all wrote a chapter about something in our life about overcoming something so we can share a legacy.
Yep.
But the next thing that I'm doing is a long-term project, but I am really building communities. And first it's just going to be us getting together, but I would like to build a center. Literally a center where it is like the hub of each community where we can have families with children with special needs to get that support. We can have elders stay at home longer so they can have that support, but you can get your therapy, mental health, like all the things in one place. So it could be a hub of the community. So yes, you'll hear a lot of me. Follow me on Instagram, Thriving with Baby Chicago. I have lots of stuff coming up.
Paula, what's another impact?
I feel like right now I'm currently living it. I didn't share, but I work in manufacturing. And so just hearing your story and your story, one of the things I do with manufacturers, I work across the state and I assist them so that they can start changing their mindset to hiring more women into manufacturing, to hiring more people with disabilities, people that are being released from prison, or people that maybe don't look like us, speak like us, or even those people that maybe do have an accent, they're not less smart than us, right? And being able to change that culture within those manufacturing space to realize, hey, we have leaders within our own organization and we need to start moving them up in our organization instead of hiring from other places. And so that's the impact that I wanted to make, and I feel like I'm living that right now, so I'm excited about it.
Thank you. What's next for you?
This year we started, it's kind of the, I don't know, the employee development thing, or whatever you want to call the trying to get me out of the organization.
Oh,
Okay.
So right now it's a lot of mentoring, a lot of learning, a lot of teaching the people that presently work for me, and trying to get Church Street to look like they want it to look, have it be their company moving forward. So that we've been working really hard on that. I've been working really hard on it too, trying, step back, let them take the reins, and let them start. They can look to me for advice, but not to me to do everything. Does that make sense?
yes, it does. Thank you.
And it's a hard job to do, even with, I don't know, we have about 10 full-time people. So trying to corral everybody and get everybody on the right places in the bus, I think we've got, but just everybody going in the same direction.
Great.
It's
Thank
a
you.
big challenge.
Yep. Pastor Rhonda, what's the next impact for you?
We're going to conquer the world, Pinky.
Okay.
No, I am, my next big impact is to survive. We're in a really tumultuous time right now, and I realize that my survival also means that the folks that are on my back survive too. So I'm in survival mode.
Yep.
And that's sufficient for the day, which is good. But I don't think my next big thing has been revealed yet. I think it's still on the horizon, and I'm kind of looking forward and terrified of how God is going to surprise me.
Okay.
Isn't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth?
Isn't that the truth?
Tell you.
For me personally and professionally, I wouldn't mind dialing it back a little bit, but that's funny. I laugh at myself because that's kind of funny. But that is a goal. But ultimately, probably work a few more years, but Jerry's will always be part of my life. And I think our next goal is to work to grow our sales enough, start our foundation so that we can work on our next unit, because we did create Jerry's in a way that we can replicate it, because we do want to create more of these and more environments and more parts through Chicagoland. So that's really ultimately the goal, is to have an impact, because it really changes people's lives.
Thank you. Can you see why I have the best job in the world, talking to women like this all the time? Can we just thank them and give them a round of applause? Thank you. Thank you for being here, for sharing. And I think we all, I believe if we were paying attention, we all are taking away at least one point, one strategy, one new perspective. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
Yeah. Can we give it one more round of applause? Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for sponsoring. Thank you for your presence. It's almost been 5 years since I did a video that it was the start of this creation process where I said we're stronger together. And I mean that. I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know that we are stronger together. So thank you for being here today. Thank you to our sponsors. Thank you to these. We said badass women when we were putting this together. Were we right? Yes. To the next slide. So for us, we're doing a handful of things, but follow us on Love Local Chicagoland. This goes to our Facebook link. You're gonna get a vibe of what we're trying to be able to do. Local Talks is just a part of it. We have a podcast. We also highlight local businesses and nonprofits as well. But if you're looking to be able to connect at all, we would love to be able to do that. Just go through there. Next slide. Us, we're a media company. If you work in a business, think of us. If you ever need video or podcasting, we got you. And my friends, if you want to get to know Dr. Michelle, can we give it up for her? Yeah. My wife was right. Make sure we get that on video. She was definitely right, and I'm super grateful for that. But if you want to connect with her, make sure to pull out your phone and scan it. We'll leave it right there. So thank you all. It's going to kind of dissipate. I'm going to turn the music back up. But feel free to connect, network how you see fit, and it'll kind of dissipate kind of as it goes as we go on with our nights. Good evening, everybody, and thank you again so much for being here. Peace.
Yeah, buddy.